I have people even in the coding industry, and there is a lot of fear right now, right? But just like anything, it's how do you use it?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Russ, and this is the Memory Makers Podcast, the show that helps you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories. All right, are you ready for a new jingle? It's not going to be Bruno Mars.
All right, what do you got?
Memory Makers. A little hey-ya.
I like that.
Mike's got these new this new gear. We got to see if I'm going to make the band or not. Oh, all right. Well, for those of you not watching, and I highly encourage you to, but for those of you not watching, you are not seeing that I'm joined by Mr. Armando Lanuti.
What's up, party people?
How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Doing very well.
I love it. We are in a fun time right now where we've always got these new hot ticket items and different things that are coming up. And I wanted to take an episode and talk with you on AI and how a company, a small business, can start to practically approach evaluating what are things that we can use with a new piece of technology like this. What are things that is nice if you're Oracle, but doesn't really translate for the layman. And so I thought this would be a really good opportunity for us to look at, hey, we're starting to use AI more regularly in different departments and for different tools and things. And so maybe looking at it from a high level ownership standpoint of how do we start to take all of this in and not be wasteful with our efforts and learning to do it. So how would you explain AI to a business owner who feels overwhelmed by all the noise around it? Because that can definitely be a thing where it's just like, well, I know it's this thing and it's coming and it's either going to be the best thing in the world or it's going to be Terminator, brought to fruition. Like, how do we start to, peel back layers of the onion with something like this?
I think that there's definitely a dichotomy in perspective right now where there are a lot of people that are like, hey, the world is going to end if everything goes to AI, whether that be, the actual Terminator type of an ending where they're coming after us and being all crazy, or just the loss of jobs, the loss of security, what are we going to do? What's my value? Those kind of things. And then there's others that are like, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. This is the greatest thing that's ever been invented. And we've seen boom or bust cycles with all sorts of things, throughout the years from this. I think this is a boom. This is a winner of a piece, but you have to determine, how are you going to look at it? Like, is this going to be something that you're going to embrace? And that is not to mean that you need to go and become some crazy programmer. It doesn't mean that you need to go and take a bunch of classes to learn how to use it. There are simple, easy ways to implement it into your everyday personal life, into your, into your business world. And then there are more complex ways, and you can kind of choose how you want it to be utilized. I think the biggest thing is making sure that you don't ignore it. I think that's a mistake. This is not a piece that you want to stick your head in the sand and, cover your ears and just scream la 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 like it's going to go away. It's not that. It's going to be here for a long time. It's not going away. You need to determine as a business owner, as an individual, how you want it to be a part of your life, right? There are simple ways. Like the easiest way is it's, treating it like an elevated version of Google, an elevated version of your typical search engine. Most of the time these days, you can't actually just go on Google without getting an AI summary and response anymore. Yeah. Right. So it is going to be the simplest way to just start seeing the benefits of it, where you might have had to done a Google search, clicked into 3 or 4 links to try and find the different perspectives to get the different answers of what you're looking for, versus before it gives you those links, it's now going to give you typically a summary, right? And it's just going to say, hey, we already did what you're likely about to go spend 30 minutes doing. Right. Here are the bullet points, right? Here are the high level elements that you can look at. And that is at a 30,000 foot view. That's how everybody should at minimum look at AI. Yeah. Right. It is simply a tool to try and save you some time at minimum in your everyday life. Yeah. How do I do things a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, a little bit more complete than I would if I were to have to hunt and peck and click around.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because I was just at the Ohio Bowling Association show, and BPAA was there, and he did a really neat presentation. And one of the things that he was talking about was that so many more people are using and what they're now calling, because you can't make money off something that doesn't have an acronym, but GEO, or generative engine optimization. So we've all gotten used to the search engine optimization, and how do we position and code our websites even on the back end of what info is getting baked into pictures and all of that. Well, now, because people are more and more using ChatGPT or Google or any of these platforms as kind of the de facto search engine, now there are new tools and ways for those things to start pulling that relevant information and doing some of that. So even as an operator that's listening to this, it's like, ooh, we're going to have to start using something like ChatGPT or Claude or whichever, and you can even type in your company address and say, how do I make my website more searchable for GEO? And like that, at a minimum, I think are some things that are, that are going to start creeping into the non-mission critical things, but it's like, how do we stay on top of the drift that's going to come, so that way we're not missing out on potential customers?
Well, and I think at the end of the day too, you still have to think about, when is somebody using AI, in particular for this type of a scenario. Most people aren't opening up, even though it is being done by some, aren't opening up ChatGPT as, where should I have my birthday party, right? Or where should I host that? Like, they are still going to default search engines like Google and whatnot. But what that brings up is, especially like, tying back to what I mentioned earlier with Google, in that, they're giving you that AI summary. Well, think about where Google's getting that information. One is your website or related websites that it has. Two, it is, what does your social media page look like? What do your social media pages that are on the Google ecosystem look like?
Interesting.
Are you doing YouTube? Are you doing YouTube Shorts, that is competing very heavily right now with things like TikTok? And when they're all part of that same ecosystem, obviously Google is going to favor results and favor information that's part of its own world, right? Imagine that. So making sure that you're not ignoring things like YouTube Shorts. And it's so easy in social media these days, whether you're using AI tools or others, where you can take the same content and output it to multiple platforms, right? The same video that I can put on YouTube Shorts can go out on TikTok, can go on Reels. So making sure that you're touching all those elements, because each of these different algorithms are scraping from their various sources first. So making sure you're doing that. I think, one of the other pieces that comes up in AI and in business is, what are some of the more in-depth ways that I can use it? What are the more practical ways I can do it? I look at something that we've started to implement, and we're still in the middle of it. Google does have a platform, where called Notebook LM, that is tied in to a lot of stuff. And basically think of it like your ability to create your own Wikipedia database within your own company very easily, taking documents that you've already created, videos that you already may have, and putting it like, hey, what are our rules and procedures? What are our packages? What are whatever the case may be? Because there's turnover in any company. But like for our clients and our customers, a lot of them have a staff that's transient by nature, right? They're 16 to 25. They're going to be going off to, from high school to college, from college to the real world, sometimes back and forth, summer job versus here during the school year, whatever the case may be. How do you keep them trained? How do you make sure that that's consistent? Using a tool like that allows you to put your information in there very easily, and it will create the note cards, the flashcards. It'll create slideshows, infographics,
searchable database,
searchable stuff.
That for me was a big piece. Like we just hired on a new person to the sales team, and as we'd been exploring and tinkering with this, like, okay, great, I can take our product web pages, I can take our Vivid Vision documentation, I can take product specific overview presentations, load all of that stuff in there. And so after they've gone through all of those individual assets, like if they're looking for quick searchable pieces just to keep things hot and fresh, or note cards to drill on some of that, like the employee manual aspect of it that could be an everyday lighter load piece, because it's like, all right, well, we've updated this or we've updated that, but now I've got all of that stuff consolidated into one spot, so it's easier for that person to navigate through those things and have it be a dynamic tool that they can use to learn from.
And everybody learns differently, right? And so one of the cool things about that platform is that it gives you the ability to do visual learning, to do auditory learning. Like it'll break down content and create a podcast about a topic. So like you can literally have it generate a 2 to 3 minute experiential training session off of a conversation just like what we're having today.
Yeah.
It's a really, really cool feature. I think another area that is great to use it is just ideation, right? And we're still talking surface level items realistically right now. You can get down a massive rabbit hole, but I want to talk about like what are the practical ways that we at Creative Works have utilized it? What are some of the practical ways that our clients could utilize it? If you've got ideas, whether it be for a marketing piece, a brochure,
menu
website,
item
social
description,
media, descriptions, vernacular to use in your brochures, because even though we're talking about a lot of digital things, there's still value in having those tangible physical things in your site, posters, all that stuff that you're going to want to have, part of your physical venue as well as part of your digital presence and your online presence. It can help you create, and it can do it without you having to be a Photoshop wizard. It can do it without you having to have some of that skill. Or what it can also help with is just create that MVP, that first version that goes, because you can still get what they call AI slop. Like that's the hot buzz term. And that's basically where, all of a sudden you've got, 10 fingers, on one hand instead of between two hands, right? Or you've got a fifth arm or whatever the case may be that sometimes can happen with that. And it's all gotten a lot better, but that's like just the super exaggerated elements of it. But it can give you the concept. It can give you the initial idea, and you can prompt, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you've got an idea, you can do that. And then you can go back and do the refinement. Then you can go back with your marketing team, with your, whether that's you as an individual, because you're a small operation, or you've got people, you can be like, hey, this is an idea I had that you were able to work through in your head, get it out to a concept, and now they can take it and run with it, right? And it makes a massive, difference in just how fast you can get things out.
For sure.
And that's one of the biggest pieces that when, we talk about AI internally at Creative Works, or I talk about it with, I have people even in the coding industry, and there is a lot of fear right now, right? But just like anything, it's how do you use it? Yeah. And, the simplest way that I like to create an analogy of it is something along the lines of, you get somebody who goes, well, I don't want to use that because that's going to take my job away, or that's going to replace me. What's going to replace you is your unwillingness to use the tool that would allow you to do more. Right? If you said, hey, I am only willing to do math by hand on paper in long form.
I'm an abacus man.
Right? I'm an abacus man. When there are tools out there such as, calculators and computers that can do this so much faster. Yeah. That's what's going to replace you. Your unwillingness to use the tools that allow you to do the things that only you can do versus the things that you feel are making you important. And I think that's the biggest distinction there when people are thinking about AI and the replacement is sometimes your self-worth is tied up into not your actual outcome of what you're doing, but the process in what you're doing it, right? And so you're creating your self-worth tied to doing that math problem long form on a piece of paper, not to getting the answer and getting it out correctly and accurately and quickly. And I think that is a difference that sometimes people don't understand. And it's not something to be fearful of, but if you adopt and utilize and learn how to integrate that new tool, you're going to be able to do more. And you're going to be able to use the things that make you uniquely you to solve problems, to be creative at a much higher level.
I almost look at it, at least in its current stage, and there are plenty of forecasting of, hey, well, this industry is going to go completely away or yada yada. But it's like Could, and yes, but the market finds a way when it comes to that. Like nothing with disruption, is an easy process. Yeah. But I almost try. It's like, how do we use this as a force multiplier? Like,
yes,
and a bandwidth saver first and foremost. And so when we look at it internally, like we have concepting artists and animators and designers and folks that can use AI to help them get to the end result faster, so they're ultimately not as burnout, they're not lost in the weeds, they're able to use it towards the things of, okay, well, this is the fine-tuning and the polishing stuff that I really need to be able to do
the work, right? Like that's the big piece. But what it allows them to do is ideate and very quickly determine if something's going to work. Right? Did this go together? Does this crazy idea I have actually work out on ink or on paper or in the digital world as I thought it should? Versus you put in a lot of that physical effort and then you go, that didn't quite turn out like I thought it was going to, or it's not going to work. And now instead of losing hours, I may have only lost minutes, right? And now I can more quickly pivot into what does ultimately work from a final standpoint.
Yeah. Finding those cul-de-sacs a little faster so you don't get lost in it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, and when we look at, and this applies for really any large, tool or even small tool, where if it's us and I look at how we've started to do this, it's okay, what are the things that bug us that eat up a lot of time just by the inherent nature in which they take? Great. And then as we come up with those kinds of tasks where I'm spending a lot of time on this area of the business, and then starting to do just some basic exploratory searches of like, what AI tools are out there that can positively impact this, and start to look at that. And then you can even go on things like YouTube and do a little bit of guided pieces where others who have had a similar situation or problem that they're trying to solve, oh great, this is how I use that now.
What are parts of your job or your career or your business that you don't like having to do, but have to do, right? And whether that be sometimes it's the low level administrative tasks where it's just I got to get these paperwork done, I got to do certain things, or sometimes it's just like, this is not my genius zone, this is not where I enjoy spending my time. Start there. That's the best advice I can give to anybody. It's like, well, how do I make my life easier with AI? Start there. What are the things that you don't want to do? Obviously within reason, right? Like I don't want to mow my yard, but AI is not solving that today. Maybe in the future, but not today, right? But like, what are the things that you've got to take care of in your everyday that do some Googling, do some querying in AI platforms. And there are so many of them out there. I think one of the other pieces that sometimes people get caught up in is, well, I don't know where to start, right? And I don't know which one to start with. And, I've talked about Google a couple times just because it's easy. It's very, it's a part of almost everybody's life, right? So it's got a bunch of platforms with its Gemini program. It's got video. It's got, obviously text. They've integrated it into a lot of its suite. So a lot of businesses out there, a lot of our clients are using G Suite to operate their business, right? And those features are there. They're already built into Docs, to Sheets, to Slides, to Notebook LM, to your email, that just make your life easier. They've done a very good job of doing that. There's also other platforms like you mentioned, obviously ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Claude Code. So, one of the things that I've seen very interestingly in, let's say the FEC operators group, right, on Facebook, is there've been a couple people like, hey, this is a problem we've dealt with, or a thing that we've needed to deal with through either a software, an integration component, or a scheduling component, whatever the case may be. Like, I made this. Took me 2 hours of prompting and refining and tweaking, and I was able to come up with this, and it solved my problem. And hey, great, now I'm going to share it. Right. And that's part of what I really love about this industry in general, is that most of the operators in this industry want the industry to be successful. And so when they come across this item that they're able to share that help them, they're willing to give it out, right? Because they want other people to be successful like them. And I think that's really awesome. And one of the powers of not only just AI, but our industry in general, for sure too.
Well, and I think that as you also look, like, part of that intimidation factor, if you just look up, okay, how many AI platforms are out there, there are hundreds, and they're all a number of them have started to get very specialized. And so, hey, if you're needing to do video being generated, or if you need an AI voiceover thing for, whatever, assets like marketing components and things like that, great. But I think one of the things that we're already starting to see is, while there are so many of these hyper specialized AI platforms have come out, then you've got some of these big daddy folks that are going to be gobbling these up and bringing them in-house under the platform or the suite of Google's AI or ChatGPT's AI. And so those will be more of a one-stop shop, and more like as this continues to go, which I think is good from the standpoint that, okay, now I can get a lot more leverage out of, instead of having 5 or 6 paid accounts, this one's doing coding for the back end of software like we use on certain things, or this one's really good for some of the design. Mike using certain ones that is really great for just like our podcast of, hey, what are some of those shorts? I need it subtitled. I get out there like kind of Mike, I will have you on as a bonus episode for this one, but like Mike uses it on the regular across things, and like for being him and Danny in the marketing department, the amount of output that we get out of both of them through these tools and the finished product being awesome, like it still gets curated and through the lens of your rock stars, but it just allows them to do a lot more instead of feeling like, gosh, we need to hire another person. Like you look at the Laura Zorn and what they did at Rebounders, where it's, hey, we're able to use this to get better prompt responses or follow-ups at weird times of night, because we can anticipate that this person likes to text at 10 p.m. when we don't have somebody from the business that's there and able to text at 10 p.m. So there's some really cool everyday things like across the board that now we can start, like, how do I, when we talk about a who not how type of situation of like, hey, I need to tackle this problem, and who on my team should I be allocating, I would start to caveat that now with, if you do have some of these new initiatives and things, like add in a little bit of extra credit of, hey, do a little bit of sleuthing and research for me and see what AI tools are out there that we could keep, even as you're just trying to get a little bit of sense of topography of what may or may not be a good fit.
No, 100%. And I think when you look at, the various programs out there, like you said, whether it's through OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, whatever the case may be, and their suite, and everybody ends up with their favorites, right? It's Apple versus Google kind of a thing. But understanding that each of them does have their own strengths. Yeah. And no different than, using a search engine to diagnose your health problems. Like, it should not be your end all be all. Like, doctors still exist and will exist for a reason. Yeah. But even another practical piece that we could use and that our clients could use is, take things like your lease agreements, right? If you're early on in the stage, or you're about to open up something new, or maybe you're already open and you're maybe looking to start up a new service with, a service provider. I'm just like a Cintas or whoever, right? Like, they're going to come and help you do some stuff. Take their agreement and throw it in and go like, hey, are there things I should look at? And again, it's not replacing your lawyer and your attorney, because they have a lot of specialty knowledge that is going to be a requisite. But when you pay somebody by the hour, if you can already go, hey, instead of just shoving over this 30-page fine print document, that's at 8-point font so they can fit as many things in there as they possibly can, and going, read all of this and figure out what I'm going to figure out. Like, do your first cursory, review based on the things that are important to you, right? Like, the things that are important to me might be different than are important to you in a contract or whatever the case may be.
Are there automatic renewals? Correct. Are there this? Those are the things that you've been burned on the past of, like, look at this document and tell me if there are these 5 things that are in there, and or
when do I have to give notice? When do things renew? What are my options? Right? Like, how do I extend it, right? Sometimes it's not just about ending it. It's about, like, how do I extend this program? How do I keep the preferred pricing or whatever the case may be? Get those pieces, go through that, ask those questions, then highlight it. Now give your highlighted document to your attorney and say, hey, here are the things that I've already seen that are important to me. Can you make sure we review it? Because now the next thing is like, okay, I found that this thing's important, but now how does that piece need to get rewritten in appropriate legalese for a document to actually be signed?
It's not falls just into the state that we're in, that falls all of that minutia that starts to go.
And that's my point. Like, it's not the replacement. It's how do I get there faster, easier, more efficiently? Yeah. is the piece that people should be asking for, how do I use AI in my business and in my everyday?
Well, and I think before we get to kind of the end here, because I do want to do a little quick hit of Mondo's book club, and it's really going to be more of like your social media feeds and stuff that you like. But one last piece of advice for people that are looking to get into this is also like just coaching yourself up a little bit on how does this thing like to get prompted? Because sometimes it's not it's intelligent, right? But it's really an aggregate that's pulling in a whole bunch of stuff because it has a huge sample size to be able to pull from and compare against. And so I've learned, as you start to learn, like, hey, I am director of sales at Creative Works. I am writing that, like, you almost have to set some context and some directives and point it in the direction that you want. And so there's a little bit of nuance that is not difficult to pick up, but like, how do I give better prompts into this so I get better results out?
I think that's a really good point. I'm glad that you brought it up, is that, if you just open it up and treat it like a search engine, you're starting from square one every single time.
Yes.
You almost need to create personas, README files. And you might have one that's, for lack of a better term, a README file that is about Armando. You might have an Armando as the business owner.
Yeah.
You might have a README file that's Armando as an individual or as a husband or as a father, right? You might have one that, as pertains to, if I have multiple business at Creative Works, at X, at Y, right?
Yep.
And you can use those as a way so that you're not having to retrain it each time. And most of these systems have the ability to save that in, and you can choose, like, hey, which persona do I want to utilize, right? In Google, they call them gems. They have them in, agents and different things in different programs. Like, how do I want to create those elements where I'm not having to start from ground zero every time, and it makes a massive difference, right? You can talk about the tone that you want it to respond in, the style, and all those things that you have or that they have, as you're doing your searching, to make sure that you're getting the most accurate information out. It makes a massive, massive difference.
Well, and even like, okay, this is an overview of, this is our food and beverage. This is the things that we currently have on our menu item. Here are the top restaurants in our industry that we see ourselves as competition. Like, what changes do you recommend based on what you're seeing between all of that? And so you can get really some fantastic results from it. It's just learning the dialect, I think, of how are you queuing up that tool so it's actually getting off the blocks for you.
No,
so
100%.
Okay, so I would love to pick your brain on some of the, hey, these are some things in my regular everyday feed that I either go to for, just personal filling up the well and fulfillment and mindset things. These are some things that I'm liking on the business side. What's been rocking your world recently?
I think the first one that maybe I would recommend is, specifically on the topic of AI, since that's where this episode was about. I would follow a person called Dan Martell. He has some great content about business, life, coaching, fatherhood, etc. But he has definitely leaned hard into, how do I use AI? And he talks a lot about the different platforms, what they're good at. And the hard part right now is that it's still evolving, right? What you're using today will be different than what you might be using tomorrow. And my biggest recommendation is, don't let that scare you from starting, because things change. Right? Because otherwise you're going to find yourself so far behind. So I definitely recommend, like, dive in, even though the landscape may change. The beginning of this year was actually a massive rollout of just, new updates that everybody got to their language models. They really took things to another level. So, it's very easy for people, and Dan talks about this, and a couple others that I follow talk about this, like, it's really easy to go, well, I tried AI once and it hallucinated and told me XYZ that was completely off kilter. And so now I ignore it completely. The worst mistake you can make, right? Because they are advancing at such a pace that is so impressive, right? And not fearful, impressive. And I think part of that is just the mindset that you have to go into this, is like, I need to look at this as the tool that will make things better, not the thing I need to be afraid of, right? And that difference can make a massive difference in how you utilize it, how you approach it, just your mentality, when you're using it. Others that I like right now a lot, Alex Hormozi actually gets a lot of hype on social media. He's got a lot of stuff from fitness world, business world, etc. I do really like his content a lot. Don't get me wrong. I actually enjoy his wife's content more.
Interesting. Yeah.
She has a perspective on culture and on people and other elements that definitely resonate with me. So Layla Hormozi would be one that I would definitely recommend. So I mean, I think it's look for the voices and just kind of riffing off of that. Look for the voices that you connect with, right? That they're using the language that you resonate with. And that will be a great way to find the content providers, whether it be about AI, business, personal development, or whatnot, that are going to resonate for you.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for the time. I always love when we get to nerd out on some fun stuff. I love it. Thank you all for joining us so much. That's a wonderful place for us to wrap up. If there are ideas or content or guests that you guys would like to see on the podcast, please hit us up on social media, and we'll be sure to get that into the mix. Always encouraged and excited to see what you guys are marinating in and how we can be of service with that. If you liked what you saw, please give us that 5-star review, please and thank you. Only if we've earned it. We've earned it. I think so. I think today was a 5-star day. And finally, be sure to check us out wherever you get your podcasts. We're releasing these episodes every week, and always happy and excited for these to be a force for good in your world. So keep after it. You're on the right track. Just keep, learning and growing and getting after it, troublemakers. We'll catch you on the next one.